Hey everybody, welcome to XZ Chat. I'm Serge.
I'm Rob.
I'm Gen Z.
I'm Gen X.
And today we are doing a Sabaton History reaction. So we're going to be reacting to their video and seeing them break down the history behind the 1527 sack of Rome. And we recently, of course, like I said, reacted to their song Last Stand. And now we want to know the history behind it. For me, it's going to be the first time learning about this historic event because I don't think I've ever heard of it. I've heard, like, for example, 300 Spartans, but never of the Swiss guards. So I'm curious to see what this will be about.
Yeah, and I remember reading about this and hearing about it so long ago. I've actually forgotten so much about. I've forgotten about it. So for me, it's almost going to be like the first time again hearing it. So I'm really curious. I want to dive into this and hear Indy.
All right, let's jump in.
And I'm Per Lionheart, and I'm here to talk about the Crusades.
Helmet.
They were so exciting times, and I can't imagine the Last Stand in the Crusader times. It was like so damn cool to be a Crusader at that time. Crusades, they are the most important thing in Sabaton life. Crusaders, Crusades, all of that Crusades.
Crusades.
And more Crusades. We're gonna do more Crusades.
Crusades. Hey, did you know that the Knights of the Templar Order might have founded Switzerland? When Pope Clement V declared in the early 1300s that all Templar knights were heretics and should be killed, many of them fled France, taking their huge treasury with them. The Templars, shrewd bankers, may have brought their treasure and their military expertise to a loose confederation of poor farmers just over the French border. Well, okay, that may actually be just a myth. But what if it was true, right? I mean, look at the Swiss flag. Quite similar to the Templars' cross if you swap the colors, right? Just saying. Anyhow, I will get back to factual history now. Over 200 years later, too. Rome, November 1523. The whole Vatican seemed like one big building site, trying to reinvent itself with classical palaces and basilicas. The city was quite cosmopolitan, where pilgrims and travelers mingled with people from all over Europe. But the mood just now was tense. Hushed voices spoke of the ongoing deadlock within the conclave of cardinals, trying to choose a new pope. Busy feet shuffled under the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, where Michelangelo's new ceiling frescoes barely got any attention, so focused was everyone on the decision at hand. Several seemingly suitable cardinals were proposed, but none could win, and it looked like it would all come down to the two candidates supported by the two great powers in the European world. Okay. For centuries, Italy and the Vatican had been the real-life chessboard for the ambitions of kings. By now, a new crisis was developing between Francis I of France and Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. Charles was pretty much the most powerful ruler in Europe since the days of Charlemagne 700 years earlier, and that certainly went to his head. He saw himself not only as divinely appointed ruler, but as the one and only Christian ruler of Europe, whose duty it was to dominate France and then unite Christendom under his banner. Giulio de' Medici was the papal candidate Charles supported, and on November 16th, he was elected and became Pope Clement VII. Everything seemed perfect, but as it would soon turn out, Clement VII's papacy would actually be one of the worst in history. And this is really saying something, but it began by Clement trying to be a good pope. Pope Leo X, Clement's predecessor, had been very popular in the Italian peninsula, and for a simple reason. He behaved less like a pope and more like an old Roman emperor. He was a lavish spender and a playboy who threw wild parties and extravagant banquets.
Wow.
Unlike Leo, Clement wanted to reign with scholars and clerics, with fasts and actual religious obligations.
Yeah, it seemed like one was more of like a party.
Certainly.
Party guy
those
rather
two
than...
stood in contrast with one another.
Yeah, they took two different approaches entirely.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, this made him deeply unpopular with the clergy in Rome. Now, this was a problem, but he still had the emperor on his side, right? I mean, all he had to do was not agitate his royal benefactor.
Is this...
Which he prompted.
Wait, I was about to say, is this alluding to him agitating the one who put him there?
Sure.
Oh, but it is kind of funny that he was less popular to everyone by actually trying to follow the ideals.
Exactly.
and actually like do things by the book in a sense.
Did. Charles was fighting a war against France in northern Italy, and rumors reached his ears that Clement had been secretly in contact with the cities of Venice and Milan to form a defensive pact with Rome in case things went bad for the Holy Roman Empire. Charles was a bit irritated by that backdoor dealing, but okay, fair enough, plans for the future, right? Okay, he understood. But when secret peace negotiations between Clement and France were suddenly not so secret anymore, Charles was furious. This was outright treason. Fuming with anger, he even proclaimed that this Martin Luther guy in all the news actually might have had a point with his hatred for the papacy. Remember, we are right at the beginning of the Reformation, and Luther had only been condemned as an outlaw by Charles 2 years
brought
ago.
that up, yeah.
Okay. After the decisive Battle of Pavia in 1525, where the French received a complete mauling by the imperial forces, with Francis even being captured, Charles gave his commander in Italy, Constable Bourbon, another task. With 5,000 Spanish troops, he should go south and have a little chat with the Pope. But Georg von Frundsberg, the famous German military commander, would rather see Clement hanged for his treachery, and he himself raised over 10,000 German Landsknechte out of his own pocket. And while the Spaniards were relatively disciplined, the Landsknechte were emphatically not. Soldiers for hire, loyal only to their pay, and many won over by Martin Luther's work.
Basically, he just went and hired a bunch of mercenaries. Out of his own pocket.
Yeah.
Wow.
10,000 from the German. I don't know if he gave him the title of prince, but the German leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's
versus the 5,000 from Spain.
Yeah. Oh, versus, right?
Yeah.
But I found it pretty crazy. Didn't he say like around 187 Swiss card or
189.
189?
Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine how that's like crazy outnumbered.
Sure. Yeah.
So ready? Continue.
Yeah.
Words. They were all too eager to get their hands on Spanish, and Frundsberg's 10,000 Germans linked up with other mercenaries eager for loot.
Wow.
But then Frundsberg suffered a stroke and returned north. Now Bourbon, stranded in Italy and trying to control both companies, for which he didn't really have the money, was left with only one option.
So he's literally
go to the money.
Yeah, he's literally banking on the fact that he's gonna get all that plunder, right? Yeah. That's gonna cover all the costs and maybe even profit, right?
Sure.
So he's literally going broke for this this whole ordeal.
Yeah, and the intent here is to loot the Vatican because there was just so much wealth there.
Yeah. So I guess from his perspective, it was like an investment. Like I'll blow all my money on building this army, so that then I can just give him more money in return by looting. Mm-hmm. So.
Moved swiftly forward and
Pirates
loot
on land.
Rome. So by May the 5th, around 20,000 Imperials were knocking on Rome's front door, the Spirito Gate. Bourbon himself, wearing a bright white cloak over his armor, ordered his troops to build ladders and scale the walls. They were fired upon by arquebusiers and light artillery and took heavy losses. See, fortified cities could not be easily stormed at the time, not without heavy artillery, and Bourbon's army had none. And while the garrison of Rome defended its walls, Pope Clement could still rely on the elite soldiers of the Italian Black Bands and his personal protectors, the 189-man strong Swiss Guard. Swiss mercenaries were extraordinarily good soldiers and highly valued all across Europe. But while the defenders were busy pouring boiling liquid onto the massive attackers, a dense fog suddenly fell. It became so thick that the men could barely see each other. And the defenders on the walls were firing blindly. Realizing his chance, Bourbon ran forward, holding one of the ladders himself and urging his troops onward. But he was hit and killed instantly.
Wow.
News of his death spread rapidly, and the initial confusion in the ranks of the attackers turned into a lust for revenge for killing their leader and, more importantly, their paymaster. The Imperials surged forward, and their numbers overwhelmed the defenders. With the gates then thrown open for the rest of the Imperials, the defense of Rome collapsed. The invaders swarmed over the city. And with Bourbon dead, there was no authority to even try to restrain them, if that was even possible by this point. The Black Bands were routed, while the Swiss Guard gathered at the obelisk in front of St. Peter's, readying themselves for a last stand near the Teutonic Cemetery. It was their duty to fight and die for the Pope's safety. And so they did, armed with halberds and swords in their hands, and faith in their hearts, they waited for the final battle on the steps of St. Peter's. Stand firm, therefore, having girded your loins with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace, in addition to all, taking up the shield of faith. Not
Biblical
that
references
much is
there.
known about the actual fighting. Heavily outnumbered, they stood true to their vows and formed a defensive wall of halberds in front of St. Peter's. In a fight they could not hope to win, the men of the Swiss Guard were gradually overwhelmed and slaughtered. Still, their sacrifice gave the Pope enough time to escape through a secret passage. Accompanied by 42 survivors of the 189, they ran across the Passetto di Borgo up to the Castel Sant'Angelo. More and more of the guard died along the way, fending off the pursuing Imperials. The last few still standing made it into the Castello with the Pope, and then they could fire heavy artillery and falconets into the mass of attackers, preventing the Castello from being overwhelmed. The Pope and those closest to him were safe, thanks to the sacrifice of the...
So he's mentioned halberds at least 3 times. Do you know what those are?
I thought they're like these lawn, kind of like you know how like a lawn pole, and at the tip is like an axe, and then at the back there's like this other piece of metal, and then at the top there's like a spike.
Okay.
I think that's
and
what
I've seen them hold those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to double check, I'll look up a quick image for us. But I believe that's what the general shape is, like this really tall. It's not quite an axe, but it has like that axe shape, and then it also has like a spike at the top and then a little bit of metal in the back as well. So how I don't know how to spell it.
Bird, I think.
How bird.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So this is what it is. Like I said, so it has like little axe shape at the front, as like a spears like spike shape at the very top, and then it has a little bit of metal in the back as well. So that's a halberd.
Yeah.
And I think that you could they like swing them down at you, so you like go like smashed, like you like get knocked back with your shield if you're trying to block.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
A horrible massacre was unfolding down below as the Imperials, the mercenaries, made their way through the city. No one was spared their wrath, not women, not children, not the clergy, nor the holy sites. Monks and priests were brutally killed. Nuns were raped on sacred altars. People were cut, beaten, and branded, their teeth and nails pulled out for the information about their valuables. Sources speak of molten lead being poured down throats and severed testicles in the streets. Tombs were looted, holy relics were carried away, often by famous artists and noblemen who now served as porters for the soldiers. From high above, Pope Clement was forced to look upon the destruction that he was unable to prevent. He grew a beard as a sign of mourning. It would take until February 1528 that the last of the barbaric invaders had left Rome. What they left behind was a city in ruins, with dead by the thousands floating in the river. It would take decades for Rome to recover. The city's population was reduced by some 80%.
Wow.
And it is seen by many
That's a lot.
as the end of the Italian Renaissance. But the sack of Rome affected more than just the city. Afterwards, Clement was no longer able to oppose Charles's ambitions, and a religious power shift away from the Pope and toward the Emperor had lasting consequences
Became a lot
for
more
all
secular.
of Europe.
Yeah.
For example, the Pope, at Charles' direction, refused to annul the marriage of Charles' aunt, Catherine of Aragon, to England's Henry VIII, which kicked off the English Reformation. The split in continental Europe between Protestant and Catholic was made permanent by the sack. And Martin Luther even pointed out, Christ reigns in such a way that the emperor who persecutes Luther for the Pope is forced to destroy the Pope for Luther. And while that's a bit general, the power of the papacy was diminished afterwards, even as the Inquisition grew under Charles's son, Philip II. The rift between Catholic and Protestant would culminate in the 30 Years' War, about which Sabaton wrote several songs on the Carolus Rex album. And as for their heroic fighting of the Swiss Guard, it would go. People are going to be wondering.
I just have to say it's remarkable what happened as a result of this, and I'm really glad he mentioned it. The implications were tremendous for centuries, to where we are today.
Yeah, the after effects.
The after effects, as you'd mentioned, things became more secular. Martin Luther's Protestantism grew and the Reformation in England, those were solidified by the weakening of the papacy. And from there going forward, the Pope did not have the political influence that he had for about 1,200 years or so.
Right, it became a weekend structure on their end,
Yeah.
and that there's like a whole power dynamic shift that occurred as a result.
And I'll bet as well, when he said it was the end of the Italian Renaissance, a lot of implications there as well. And also with the looting of so much money to rebuild Rome and rebuild the church with a lot of its relics. They still had massive amounts of land, but one could say, or one could argue, the hard cash was no longer at their fingertips.
Right, yeah. And they lost a lot, and like holy relics and a lot of things, items of like great value.
Yeah.
And then an 80% reduction in the population.
In the population, yeah.
Yeah, 80% of the population just wiped out.
Yeah. How are you gonna rebuild that? I mean, the economy, and like you said, it took decades. I'm sure at the very least decades for it to rebuild. And at the time, everyone at the time in history, from what I've read and understood, a lot of Europeans always made Rome a sort of a mecca, if you will, to go and visit because of its rich history. And so after that, I'm sure that also prevented a lot of people from going there.
Right. If it happened once, it could happen again, in a sense.
Right. And it was in a city of destruction, in disarray.
Right.
Yeah.
Why we started this episode with crusades, but it's not about the crusades.
No, it's a meme. It became a meme. I guess somebody misunderstood the song, or too many people started misunderstanding the song. So our lovely Sabaton fans, instead of bashing them and trolling them on the internet, made memes about them instead.
Now, do you have a whole bunch of memes of yours?
Yeah, there's been a few over the years. I think this one and, well, the Winged Hussars.
Oh yeah, but that's see, I knew that one. I didn't know this one though. So.
It's even sometimes going only in text form. You don't even need a picture. Sometimes you are on Reddit reading about a totally different topic, and then somebody just writes, and then the Winged Hussars arrived.
Yeah, but we've seen that in our comments a lot over the last 8 months or so. We've been doing this show, or more than that now. I've been fortunate enough to have a couple of memes done about me. More with the Great War because it was longer than World War II one. And my favorite one, and we're going to put a picture of it in here. We were at the Tank Museum, Bovington, and David Willey, the director of the Tank Museum there, very eloquent guy, knows his stuff, popular, he's really good camera. We were doing interviews and stuff, and somebody got this photo of it, and they put this. But and what about the actual song itself, Beyond the Memes?
Beyond the Memes was actually the first song written with Chris, one of the most popular from that album. Really nice vibe to it. I don't know what it is. It's really Sabaton. If you listen to it, you don't even have to wait for the sort of the vocals to start. You will know it's a Sabaton song only from...
You mean from this part right here?
Yes.
Yeah, you can tell by the
That's the part
instrumentals.
you mean. Yeah, I think you pretty much got that. So, could you say? I mean, not would you want to say, but could you say, if you had to say, could you pick a single 10-second thing of a Sabaton song and say that's us and that defines us, or is that too much?
I can. No, I can, but it's not going to be the song. It's going to be Primo Victoria.
Okay,
Through the gates of hell as we make our way to heaven, through the Nazi lines, and then the choir, Primo Victoria.
We can hear
Never
that
heard
too.
that one yet.
No, but we will.
You got they get a bonus today. They get all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah.
You kid, we're starting to spoil you guys.
Yeah, we're generous guys.
It's not too long. It's only a couple months away before this channel will be a year old.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I know. We started. The first episode came out February 7th.
It feels much shorter than that. I can
I
tell.
wonder how long ago this video was posted. So they said it's almost a year. Oh my gosh, this was 3 years ago.
Okay.
Wow. So now they're like on their fourth year
done dozens
anniversary
of
run.
episodes, and we've got dozens more. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do one of every Sabaton song.
I would like that very much. And if you guys have anything special you'd like to see for our 1 year anniversary when it comes, we may as well start talking about.
We're a
that
little
now.
past that
We're
now.
gonna start asking for bloopers. You know that.
Oh, well, we don't have any bloopers, do we?
We deleted all.
Deleted all. Oh, damn. Dude, my life is a blooper.
We deleted the bloopers.
Okay, no, we do have some great bloopers. I mean, none that involve him. They only involve Per.
Exactly.
Actually, that'd be funny if we only released pair bloopers as our one-year thing. Ladies and gentlemen, here's pair. Oh, that'd be brilliant. Okay, well, as long as we're getting off topic, I suppose that is it for today for Sabaton History, yes?
It is, I think, yes.
All right, well, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching, and hopefully you can help us out here now. So, we want to keep this going. It's a lot of fun to do, but it takes some doing. So you need to click on notifications, you got to subscribe, and if you can, we would love it if you would become a Patreon and help us out. So, hopefully, until we meet again next week.
There we go. Yeah, I noticed he's great
like
at
it.
maintaining eye contact with the camera there, especially at the end.
Yeah, it's like he's speaking directly to us, and I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So
That's a good job. I like this guy, Indy. We've talked about him
Indy
in the
Nidell.
past.
Yep.
Yeah, Indy Nidell does a great job as a historian
Mm-hmm.
to make it interesting and easy to understand. When I say easy to understand, not that he gets so academic,
Right.
or
like summarizing it in a succinct way, right?
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. And
easy to follow. And,
I like his method, like in a way, like storytelling, like the way he breaks down the history and he's like laying it out chronologically of what's going on.
That's what keeps it
What are
interesting.
the events that transpired, and also bringing in images, right? Like in this case, bring out actual like paintings from that are depicting what happened during that time. Which is pretty interesting. And then, of course, for World War I, World War II, they would have like actual photographs as well, or videos, short little video clips.
yeah, a lot of actual footage.
Exactly. Yeah, but in general, I enjoyed learning about the story. First time
I did too.
I learned about it, and so always interesting to learn something new.
Yeah, thank you for recommending The Last Stand. Another really good song by Sabaton, which just led us right into this this history episode
Yeah.
of that whole event, the sack of Rome.
Yeah, so with that being said, we hope you guys found this interesting as well. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell icon to stay up to date on future videos. And with that being said, have a great rest of your week.
All right, you will see us again soon.
All right, guys, take care.